r/NoSleep. Posted by u/withbite. People in my hometown are having the same dream. They are no longer sane. In a few hours I am going on the run. It will be just before dawn when I make my move. The people who I am running from should still be asleep then. They will be dreaming. I am writing this down while I can so that there is a record. A warning. What happened here could, I believe, happen anywhere. It could happen where you live. It might already have begun. My hometown was an unremarkable place. Family-owned shops populated the high street. Where it petered out, a bar and a chapel stood within a stone's throw of each other. There is a small graveyard adjoining the chapel. I used to like to sit on a bench in the graveyard and read second-hand paperbacks or wander round looking at the names on the headstones and imagining what life was like for the people buried there. I've always been a bit of a loner and nervous, unsure of myself. I hoped that as I got older, I would become more confident. A few days ago, on the morning of my 20th birthday, I woke up with the biggest spot I had ever had in my life. I stood peering into the bathroom mirror despairing at the angry red growth on my chin. Surely, I thought, acne was one of things I should have left behind by now. There was a hammering on the bathroom door. My sister, Samantha, hollered for me to get my ass out of there as she had to get ready for work. Acne, and still living at home, this was not how my life was meant to be. I opened the door to find Samantha standing there in her PJs and a dressing gown looking even more grumpy than usual. "Not get your 8 hours of beauty sleep?" I said spitefully. "No, I didn't," she snapped back with a ferocity I was not anticipating. "I had a really horrible dream, if you must know." She stormed past me, and I listened to the lock being snapped shut. "Geez," I muttered to myself, then noticed the time. If I was not careful I was going to be late for work. Again. The jobs available in my hometown feel more like life sentences than careers. I had worked in the local burger joint since I was 16. I knew all the customers, was related to a few. The half-dozen booths were still empty when I arrived. It was 7 a.m. on the dot and Maisie, the owner's wife, was behind the counter loading the till with change. Now, I have a confession to make. Maisie is 10 years younger than her husband and what she sees in him I don't know. I am 10 years younger than Maisie and have a hopeless crush on her. She is so beautiful. I ached for her and wished I had the guts to tell her how I felt. That morning she looked tired and distracted. My opening line was witty and sympathetic. "Hey, you," I said. She wiped a stray strand of blonde hair away from her forehead. My heart missed a beat. "Hey, kid," she replied. Trying not to let kid hurt too bad I plowed on, asking, "You okay?" She untucked a new bag of coins. So. I had the weirdest dream last night and woke up feeling very disturbed, as if it had really happened. She looked up at me. "Has that ever happened to you?" I wanted to say emphatically yes. Then, maybe, she would say, "Let's not open today, let's sit round talking." Really talking. "I'd like to get to know you better. You seem so sweet." I snapped back to the here and now. I am very prone to daydreaming but, as for dreams, I never remember mine. As far as I know everyone dreams but mine never seem to stay with me. I was still trying to think what to say when the first customer of the day walked in. The moment was dust. The rest of the day passed in a blur of spitting grease and lousy tips. Maisie's husband rolled in late afternoon. I was headed home soon afterwards and wasted another evening playing games on my computer. My life sucked. The next day started early with a commotion coming from my sister's room. I stuck my head out into the hall. Through the open door I could see our mom had her arm around Samantha. My sister had her hands up to her mouth and was crying. Samantha is 18, so not a little kid anymore, but at that moment she looked young and very vulnerable. "What's wrong?" I asked. Mom stroked Samantha's hair and said, "Nothing. Just a bad dream." I was still half asleep, so it did not occur to me that anything strange was going on. I headed off to the kitchen to brew up coffee. I passed my parents' bedroom. The door was open and Dad was sitting on the edge of the bed. He looked pale and tired. I wondered if he was coming down with something. A couple of hours later I was starting to be convinced there was a bug going around. Maybe a summer flu. I was trying not to stare at Maisie and failing. She looked tired again and kept pausing in the middle of doing something. Standing over the open till, a bill in her hand. Staring down at a plate piled high with burger, chips and onion rings that was ready to take over to a table. I did not want to catch whatever she had but I wanted to be there for her more. When there was a break in the steady stream of customers, I took advantage of it to sidle over. She was wiping a glass that was already bone dry with a dishcloth. "Penny for your thoughts, boss?" I asked. She smiled. It looked like an effort and I felt like I was being intrusive. I kept going though. "If there is anything I can do to help, you just have to say." "That's nice of you to ask, but it's not anything that can be helped. I had the same dream last night and the same unsettled feeling when I woke up. Only, it was worse this time. It still felt real even after I had got up and showered. Like it was a memory of something that had actually just happened, which is crazy. Believe me, this dream is way out there." Trying not to think of Maisie in the shower, and feeling like a total perv because I could not help myself, I managed to ask, "What was the dream about?" She frowned, which somehow made her look even more beautiful to my love and hormone-clouded eyes, and thought for a moment before answering. "There was a shadow over me, something dark and shapeless. It made me feel claustrophobic, and I was finding it hard to breathe. Then I realized the shadow thing was hovering, like an insect, and when I thought that, I heard a buzzing sound. It was an insect. A hornet, only it was the size of a grown man, and it was inches away from me. I was terrified. I could not move. I knew if I did it would sting me and I would die. This was when I woke up and for a moment as I lay in bed starting up at the ceiling I could still see the hornet. It was indistinct. An afterimage. But it was still there." She paused and a shiver passed through her entire body. Without thinking what I was doing I reached out and put an arm around her. "It's okay," I said. "It was just a bad dream." She looked me straight in the eye. "I know," she said quietly. She looked very uncomfortable. I took my arm off her. "Sorry," I mumbled. "I didn't mean to." But she had moved away and was soon bustling around cleaning tables that did not need cleaning. Have I mentioned yet that I can be a real jerk? Though you've probably worked that one out for yourself anyway. I arrived home feeling very low. I was met by the smell of home cooking and though I had no appetite I wandered through to the kitchen to say hi to my parents before I disappeared into my room for the night. Samantha was sitting at the dining table. She still looked pretty shook up. Mom fussed around something in the oven. Dad was getting a cold one from the fridge. I wish I had paid more attention, could remember more details of what I now know as the last ordinary moments I would spend with my family. No one was really paying me any attention, no change there, and I headed off to my room. I was woken at dawn by Samantha screaming. I sat up in bed bolt awake. It sounded like she was being attacked. My heart beating fast, I raced out of my room into hers. She lay in her bed and was crying out at the top of her voice. She seemed to be clawing at the air with her hands as if she was trying to fend something off. All this while, as far as I could tell, she was still asleep. "Samantha," I yelled. "Wake up. It's just a bad dream." The moment those words were out of my mouth things started to click into place in the back of my mind. Samantha's bad dreams, Maisie's. Two people I knew suffering from recurring nightmares. I pushed the thoughts away and focused back on my sister. I had to help her. I shook her arm gently to try and bring her out of it. Her eyes shot open. She stared up at me and dug her fingernails into my face, screamed louder than ever. She sounded like she was fighting for her life. I could feel warm blood run down my face where she had cut me with her nails. I tried to push her hands away. I did not want to hurt her. She was clearly hysterical. I managed to pry myself free and backed away. Samantha stopped screaming. She was breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling and her face was slick with sweat. She turned her head and looked at me. It was as if she had seen me for the first time. She seemed totally disorientated. My face stinging, I went out into the hall. I wondered for the first time why Mom and Dad had not come running as well the moment they heard Samantha. I saw Dad was standing outside their bedroom. He held his head in his hands and I could see that he was weeping. He must have realized I was there because he said, "I did not mean to. You have to understand. It was the dream. I thought it was the hornet." Then he staggered away, out of the front door. I listened as the car started, drove away. Dreading what I would find, I pushed open the door to my parents' bedroom. My mom was curled up on the bed crying silently. I went over to her, rested my hand on her shoulder. She turned and I saw the bruises darkening on her face, the swelling around her eyes. "What did he do to you?" I asked, my voice shaking. Tears ran down my face. My mom's voice was very quiet, almost inaudible, when she answered. "He was having a bad dream. He's been having them for the last few nights, told me about them. I knew it was happening again because he cried out in his sleep. I tried to wake him and he lashed out. Wouldn't stop hitting me, even after he was awake. It was only seconds but..." She could not go on. I put my arms around her and we both cried for a long time. I did not want to leave Mom alone. I phoned Maisie at the burger joint but she did not pick up. I left her a message telling her that I couldn't come in. I said it was a family emergency, left it at that. What had actually happened, what had caused my sister and my father to strike out, I had no idea. Bad dreams. They belonged to the night, were phantoms of the mind. How could they be reaching into the day, infecting people I loved and driving them to violence? Mom and Samantha gravitated together and disappeared into the bathroom. Not knowing what to do with myself and with a lot on my mind, I decided to go to work after all. Mindless routine could be just what I needed, and I had a new reason, beyond my infatuation, to want to see Maisie. From the fragments I had, it appeared that there could be a link between her dream and the ones which had been plaguing my family. She had talked about a hornet, my dad had used that word as well. I wondered if when Samantha had attacked me she had been trying to defend herself against the same monstrous hornet Maisie had described. It sounded crazy but I needed to work out what was going on. My heart sank when I reached the burger joint. It was locked up, looked like it had not even opened that morning. I did not hesitate. I would go and see Maisie at her home. Trepidation built inside me as I made my way to the house on the outskirts of town she shared with her husband. My imagination was in overdrive. If Maisie had had the bad dreams at least 2 nights in a row, had she done something crazy as well? My worst fears were realized when I saw her house. It was burned out. A blackened frame was all that remained. The stench of smoke made my eyes water and stung my throat. A fire truck was parked close by and a police car. A deputy was unspooling crime tape. He saw me. "You can't be here," he said. "I work with Maisie," I told him. "She is my friend." He looked to be considering something and finally put the tape down and walked over to me. "I'm sorry," he said. "Maisie passed away in the ambulance on the way to hospital." "Was it the fire?" I asked, my voice breaking. "The smoke," he replied. He shook his head. "It's the strangest thing. I knew Maisie, we went to high school together. She always had her head screwed on straight and yet she went and did this. The dream, I thought. A monster that comes in the night, hovering over you. That terrifies you. A fear that makes the sane do terrible things." "What did she do?" I managed to get the words out. "We only know because she told the paramedic tending to her in the ambulance before she died. She said she started the fire. It was the hornet, she said. She had to smoke it out. There was no other way." He rubbed his face. I could see how badly this had shaken him up. "It makes no sense. None of it." "Her husband?" I asked. "Never made it out the house. Proclaimed at the scene." There was nothing more to say. I left him to get back to work. The next days were a blur. I walked in a daze around my hometown and went home late. Dad was back and I guess him and Mom must have spoken. I did not know. Did not ask. Mom was having the dream as well now. I could tell from the way she looked, and how she seemed numb to the screams that came from Samantha's room every morning. Mom, Dad and Samantha did not speak to me and I kept my distance from them, especially early morning. Sometimes I caught them looking at me as if I was a stranger to them. I got the hell outside each time. Only there was no respite. Everywhere I went I saw drawn, exhausted faces. People walking slowly down the street and coming to a halt for no reason I could see. A passerby who had not experienced what I had, would not have thought anything amiss. "We all have our problems, things weighing down on us," they might have said. I knew what was really going on. The dream was spreading, was damaging more and more people. Every single moment I was afraid of what would happen next. Was aware of the danger I was in. Dawn is close so I am going to put my laptop away now. Put it in my backpack with a change of clothes and the $500 from my cleared out savings account. I turn on the recorder on my phone. I need to keep capturing this. The house is quiet. My family are sleeping. My heart breaking, I let myself out, closing the door silently and set off down the still deserted high street. I had been walking for about 10 minutes when the silence was broken. When a scream rose into the dawn air as a dreamer woke.